We look very happy with ourselves in that intro,
We
Gary.
did.
Are you living up? Are you living up to the pack shot this afternoon? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I am. I even managed to sneak in a little nap this afternoon. The
Did
privilege
you?
of the retired.
I had one this morning. I was so tired this morning. I
Great.
laid down on my. I'm in the shed, as you said. Where's
Mm.
my garage? And I've made it look like a shed sort of style studio. And I've got a sofa in here. I've got everything I need. Look, bottle of wine. That's the Good Morning Portugal bottle of Portuguese wine of the week. Got everything I need. And me and my dog curled up on the sofa this morning and had a snooze this morning. That's way ahead on the siesta stakes,
It's
isn't it?
good for you,
I
having a
believe
nap.
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Do you know there are times when you feel like you've got no choice, right, except to put your head down and
Yeah,
have a
it's
break.
like the plug has been pulled and let it stay out. I
It was
set
a blue
myself a
screen.
1 hour alarm.
Well, I think I was only away for. Well, this is how I time snoozes, or some of them. Is
Mm.
I didn't know how long I'd been asleep, and I didn't know where I was. But it might have only been 10 or 15 minutes. And I quickly realized, because I don't normally shut the door of the garage. I mean, I really had a proper lockdown, and I don't
Mm.
normally shut the door. But I was thinking, well, where am I? What is this? Oh, okay, yeah, I remember now. And
Very
yeah,
restful.
very, very refreshing indeed. So both of us, you would think, are like fighting fit and like coiled springs, ready to tackle the issue of the day.
Yep, yeah, we're ready. Go for it.
All right. Okay. Now this is episode 10,
It
and
is.
well, I put to you the idea of, can we look at surviving and even thriving in what
Hmm.
I think and what occurred to me as tumultuous times. So that's the basic idea. And I think it's, I've got much better at context rather than just going into conceptualization and abstraction, although let's see if that's true or not. And the first thing I want to put to you and to anybody who might be watching this now or later is, are we living in tumultuous times? That's quite the premise, isn't it? It's quite the presumption
Hmm.
to say that. And that's the first part of the proceedings of the conversation that I'd like to discuss with you and anyone who might join us. Do you get the sense that these are tumultuous times, or is it like our snoozes? We're quite sort of privileged in a way to be able to put our heads down and not have our noses pushed against the grindstone all day long. Is this another factor of the lives and culture we live, and that's just our lens optic of where we are, and it might seem very different to other people? So, basic question: are these tumultuous times to you, Gary?
Second hand, yes.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
First hand, I'll straight off the bat, I'm living the life of Riley, as they say.
Yeah.
I'm retired. I've sorted out many of the emotional and intellectual issues I lived most of my life with.
Mm,
It's my 42nd wedding anniversary next week.
congratulations.
I'm with the person I loved for that longer. My daughter sorted out. There's so many things. I don't have to worry about money at the moment, unless
Mhm.
there's a global crash and I can't get a pension. So I'm sitting from this position of a firm foundation. So my life is not tumultuous.
Yeah.
However, my observation of the world is that it is going through a rate of change that's
Mhm.
never been seen before on the planet.
Okay.
There have
Yeah,
been
that's
wars
what I'm talking
before,
about. Yeah.
but the rate of change that we're having to deal with, our primitive brains,
Yeah.
has never been seen before. And this is just the beginning of it. So,
Right.
in that way, yes, these are tumultuous times. And we probably have to find old ways of dealing with it, but also maybe some new ways that aren't obvious to us yet.
Yes, that's very
What do
interesting.
you feel?
Yeah, I get a sense that we are living in the word that comes to mind is, the collective sense of the world is tumultuous and transformational, rapidly changing, upheavalous. And what's very interesting about what you just said is, we old ways of dealing with this new situation. Did I sort of
Yeah.
summarize that correctly? And also, what I think we might be experiencing is how some of the old ways, some of the things that have got us here aren't working anymore. They're not fit for purpose. We are, depending on which
Hmm.
theory, a tumultuousness you might be looking at, and
Yeah.
I'm one that captured my imagination when I first found out about it. The fourth turning, talks of these cycles of human history, and it maps beautifully with the generations as well, Gen X, Gen Z, and the millennials, and how all of these demographic groups, roughly speaking, because they are generalizations,
Hmm.
um, mark the passage of time and the changing of ideas and customs and cultures of certain people in certain times, and the ferment that brings with it, and how all of those things are symptomatic, if you like, of the progress that we're facing and the changes we might be dealing with as well. Because I suppose today's change is tomorrow's history, isn't it? History is a different beast to what we're living as our actual lives. So the fourth turning makes a lot of sense to me, and we don't have to go too deeply into that. But the fourth turning of all the four, there are, it's like we're in the final quarter of a particular way of looking at human behavior, and I think in Western civilization, if you like,
Yeah.
and post industrial revolution, this time of the Western lifestyle and culture, this is what happens. We face the breakdown of institutions that got us to, that were once enjoyed and indeed made a golden age, if you like. If you think of the British National Health Service, certain education systems that peaked and delivered, they're not so, I don't know if relevant's not the right word, but they're not delivering in the same way that they used to.
Yeah.
So we're thrashing an old horse for a wrong race, if you like.
Hmm. So I look back in history and I think if I had lived in East Anglia, that's the eastern part of the UK, in
Yes.
around 40 BC, and suddenly these Romans appeared.
Yeah.
That was tumultuous times,
Yeah. Right.
and and it's happened so many times where um, one civilization has got really quite big and pushy,
Mm,
and they've decided their way is the only way, and
yeah.
they've pushed out or tried to destroy the culture of the people in nearby neighborhoods, and then thousands of miles away. The
Yeah.
Persians have done it, the Greeks have done it. It's happened across Europe continually. South America, the same. Perhaps less so North America until Europeans appeared.
Yeah.
It was the Portuguese, wasn't it? First?
They
No,
do play a part
the
in this.
Vikings first.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's one kind of tumultuous times, eras where it's war, but it's periodic,
Mm,
it's sporadic, and it's unpredictable until it begins.
yeah.
What we're seeing, I think, now is a cultural change that yes, there will be wars because that's the human nature of many people, but the change is almost over and above that.
Yeah.
It's bigger than any individual nation. It's bigger than any individual despot. They will live, they will go. But there's something that I feel is changing, and we're not sure how to influence it yet. We know how
Yeah.
to push it. I'm thinking maybe AI, that kind of thing. We can push it and push it and push it, but we don't really know how it's going to affect humans. And I don't want to necessarily get on the AI treadmill, but it's an example of how we're doing things because we can do it,
Mm.
not necessarily because we should do it, or we do it in a particular direction. It's, hey, let's go and do it and see what the hell happens.
Yeah, and we don't not all getting a say in that, are we? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the really funny thing about AI, for example. And yeah, let's not disappear entirely down the AI rabbit hole. But it's like it's a given almost, isn't it? It's like there's no sort of conversation about, well,
yeah,
some of us don't really want to do this, so you lot are on your own doing it. this is such a dominant idea, just as a lot of technology is. It's thrust upon people. It's like
Yeah.
you go to Google now, and it's not like would you like some AI results? It's just changed, didn't it? Overnight, it was
Yeah.
an
Oh,
AI result. That was it. You know, you
everything.
didn't have any choice in the matter, did you?
I mean, I quite, you know me, I'm an incredibly curious person.
Yeah.
When I started learning back in the Stone Age, and I
40
was at
BC.
university, there were no computers except big rooms, and I even started on punch cards, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, that was how
Mhm.
I learned BASIC, and wrote programs on punch cards. When you went to the library and you had to go to the library, these halcyon days,
Mm.
to find a book, you went to the index cards, and there were
I remember
small
it. I remember.
drawers
Yep.
with lots and lots of little, usually hand typed or handwritten in
Yeah.
beautiful handwriting,
Yep.
exactly what the book was about, which shelf it was on, what its Dewey Decimal number was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're
So you
talking
went
another
along.
language for some people here.
So the exercise required to find the source of information before you could even decide, do you believe it or not,
Yeah.
was gargantuan.
Mhm.
Now, if you're looking to, as I was as a scientist, often I'd want to write what's called a review. So what is the collective knowledge on this particularly focused piece of science? So that you could then decide, was there a question that's never been asked before? That's how science moves from one step to the next. Imagine having to search the whole literature by index cards. And then if you found a research paper that wasn't in your particular university's library, you would have to lodge an interlibrary loan. And then a physical piece of paper came back. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And you'd want 400 or 500 of these before you could write a synthesis of the problem.
Wow.
Now,
That's why
with
degrees lasted 3 years, right?
yeah, that's why now I like the research capability of AI,
Mhm.
because it allows me, in theory, as long as it doesn't hallucinate and produce papers that don't exist, remember,
That doesn't happen.
no, of course not. It gives not only non-fiction writers and scientists, but also creative writers, the chance to harvest material and synthesize it like we've never been able to do before.
Mm.
But like all technologies, it's still really raw. I mean, we've not had that kind of program, Chat GPT, for more than, it's less than 5 years where it's been generally available.
Yeah.
It is not the finished product. So it's going to throw out crap because
But you
it's
may have
designed,
noticed. You may have.
to fill a void. So it fills it.
Mm.
So anyway, I love the idea of AI. I just wonder at two things, and I'll stop on AI for now. I will anyway. Is there's always a person who's going to use technology for ill purposes.
Yeah.
We don't know who they are, and we don't know what they're going to do with it. But that's the same with any technology.
True.
The other thing is nature is inherently lazy. If it can save energy by not doing something and still being as effective, it will not expend the energy. So if we're not having to work and find all those index cards and put our ideas together, our brains will stop using that muscle, as it were.
Mhm.
And there's already scientific evidence to show that heavy users of AI are showing less cognitive ability. And that's within the first few years of it being generally available. So that's the threat. We are inherently lazy. And if we can have something else do our job for us, we will let it happen.
Gary, we said we wouldn't go down the AI rabbit hole, and I want to. There's so much I want to say about that.
But this is
Maybe,
tumultuous times. It
and this is
affects
just
our
one aspect.
education.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I do think let's broaden it to the
Please,
cutting edge
let
of
me off it.
technology. No, I mean, we can come back to that because I think AI is a part of an aggressive front of technology that we could safely say is part of the tumultuous times. I call them chaotic times as well. So we've got that. I think we've got a particular time in the history of the Western culture, if you like, as well.
Okay.
And they go hand in hand with each other. So we are facing geopolitical and sociological shifts, aren't we? We're facing a power balance shift in the world. Europe and Western culture might be becoming a kind of historic museum piece of a thing as the new what we used to call developing countries. I don't know how long we're going to keep calling them that.
No, other
But
countries.
other countries are going to pick up are going to pick up and run with the ideas that have gone before from the human collective and the Anglo-American and European project will be very different and I think that's changing in front of our eyes at the moment. So that too is really exciting in one way, frightening in another. But tumultuous seems like a fairly good word to apply to that, and we might be, it might do us well to be aware of that. But I guess we are coming to some sort of consensus here, aren't we, that these, or to put it another way, who would deny that these are tumultuous times apart from someone who does live in that way that you talked about, the person, the equivalent of the person in East Anglia who didn't see the Roman army coming and was just going about their business. There must be people in this world of
Oh,
our
yeah.
who are
Well,
untouched.
they're the people that don't vote, for example, in my view.
Right.
They're the people who have allowed somebody to step in on a minority of population, and the UK government is a minority government to me. Not in
Oh, I see what
terms
you
of
mean. No.
not in
Yeah, I meant
yeah,
something
not in
slightly
terms
different.
of seats,
Yeah.
in terms of the proportion of the total population who actually voted. They are a
Oh, yeah.
minority.
And in
Um,
terms of representation, absolutely. They are minority views, aren't they, that have been ushered in as a consequence of a poor system.
yeah,
It's not the only
authoritarian
country that's
systems.
been, yeah. And we've got Abdul Alim, who's watching us,
Hi, Abdul.
who's popped in, who talks about, if I get this right, Alim, an unrepresentational democracy. We have some comfort in the fact that we live in democratic systems, but the result is actually quite poor in terms of a breakdown of general representation of people, and that's, we see these extreme ends having their influence and causing chaos, and the
Yeah.
center being under pressure. Hi, Alim, he's here with that. I don't know what that phrase is. Please remind me, Alim, that phrase you use of the sort of failure of, I think how you, representational deficit. There you go. And that
Yeah.
can lead quite easily to the
Mm.
expression and then the encouragement of extremism, because the media loves a bit of that
Mm.
as well. So, okay, so
Mm.
that's the first point here. Are these tumultuous times? It would take somebody quite a contrarian, or somebody who lives in an entirely different culture to ours, to say, no, I'm not noticing much of a change. It's pretty much how it's been for the last 50 or 100 years. Nothing to see here. Look, from what we're saying to each other, there is a lot to see here, isn't there?
Well, it's funny. I mentioned the rate of change, and
Yeah.
as you know, I'm on Substack, which is also called the Positive Echo, by the way. Free to subscribers. There's the
Yeah.
pitch. Somebody was mentioning in a note about, why can't I have an old-fashioned washing machine? I don't need all these features. I just want it to wash.
Most people only use one or two settings, don't they?
Yeah. So it made me again think of myself as a 4-year-old working in the backyard of my grandmother's house with my mum, using what they call a dolly tub and a ponch. Now, a dolly tub is a zinc tub about the height of a 4 or 5-year-old, full of really hot water. the clothes went in, and then you'd use effectively a wooden stick to move the clothes around in the soapy water. That's one lifetime.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
now the washing machine is controlled by your mobile phone, where you could be across the other side of the globe.
Yes.
One
That's right.
lifetime. That's the rate of change.
Yes.
And I know we're going to move on to discuss it later, but it's worth a little note now. Are we built for that rate of change? Are we biologically equipped for it? And are we therefore experiencing survival mode inside ourselves because
Very
of
good.
the tumultuous times?
Yes. Thank you very much. Now, that is such a good segue. We didn't plan this, but that is the
No,
most
not at all.
beautiful segue, isn't it, into the second question. So, what is it to survive in the first place? And then
Mm.
we could possibly look at thriving being the exalted or amplified state of just being and surviving, and to do what I think we came here for. Frankly, I mean, it may seem a very luxurious premise, opinion, but I think we are here as human beings to enjoy life, and on that basis enjoy our lives as much as is possible, and thereby remove things that get in the way of that for ourselves and each other. To me, that's
Mm.
my mission, and that's what I would hope for other
Yeah.
people. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that anyone should agree with that, but that's just my personal view of it, and that's where this second question is coming from, the supplementary, if you like. What is it to survive and then thrive? And you make a fantastic point, Gary, because if
Me?
we aren't built for that level of change. My dad used to, we've got Hugh here, for example. No idea how it works, never used AI, also never go to McDonald's. That's an interesting pairing, I have to say, Hugh. Maybe you're suggesting that AI is the McDonald's of intellectualism. I don't know. But my father said, he could barely use a hairnet, let alone the internet. He never had a computer. He passed away 13 years ago,
Mhm.
and never used it. He could touch type. Interestingly, he could use
Yeah.
one of them newfangled computers because he learned that when he was doing national service. So he could type without looking. But he never started a computer. Never had one. Came close.
Yeah.
Had a skirmish with a fax machine, but he couldn't use that either. So very interesting. The pace of change you mentioned, the incredible change that's gone on, and are we equipped to deal with it? What's your view on that? Because you put the question, do you think we
Yeah.
are?
Well, I'm a biologist, so let's spend a moment just looking at us. Nature's been very generous, and I think we're over-engineered. Yeah,
Hmm.
we've got huge safety net in the complexity of our brains.
Yeah.
However, we evolved back in the African plains to survive a very brutal world. So this is hunter-gathering, but no farming yet. It's thousands of years, many thousands of years before farming. So we're hunter-gatherers, and it may be a bit hackneyed, but it's likely that there was then a division of labor, with mainly the men going out hunting, not necessarily gathering. The women often, as with the Bushman people now, would go and dig roots and collect fruit and so on, and they were closer to home. So it was probably a really boring, mundane physical life, not necessarily mundane cultural life. We just have no idea.
We can't know, can we? We can't know.
We can't know. I'm
Yeah.
sure stories were told in some format. So there was a culture. If you again see where we are now, we're almost physically immune from nature. I think it's going to come and bite us in the backside soon,
If it
but
hasn't already, right? If
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 it
it
hasn't
isn't
already.
doing so in ways that we don't understand already, yeah, yeah.
But in terms of the last 5,000 years, we have not changed much genetically. There's some drift and there's some concentrations of features, but we're
Yeah.
effectively the same as we were 5,000 years ago.
Right.
Technology is changing blindingly fast. So the evolution we now have to undergo is cultural adaptation to cultural change, which is out of control. Nobody's controlling cultural change. Nobody's controlling technological change or even human-induced biological change. We have to find a way of adapting to it. And the question is there a limit to how much cultural adaptation we can undergo without becoming overwhelmed and having tumultuous times internally? That's
Yes.
my hypothesis.
I'm with you, and I thank you for that. And we might say, mightn't we, that if we look at ourselves, and I will stick to what we know because it's
Yep.
better that way, isn't it? You know, our culture, if you like, in the
Mhm.
broadest sense of what we know. Obviously, we
Yeah.
don't experience every
Just use
aspect.
us as a mirror to
We
other
have a sense,
cultures to look
don't we?
into.
Yeah, look at Western civilization,
Mm.
so called. Um, we seem to be epidemic in levels of ill health, of physically and mentally. So that which you described might be occurring. That
Yes.
might, those might be the symptoms and markers of how we're not coping terribly well with the changes that are coming about, either thrust upon us or that we've brought about collectively. Would you accept that as a
Yes,
kind of
I think it's
symptomatic approach?
almost undeniable that it's happening.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a book, and I'm going to mention another one. Thomas Malthus, an essay on population,
Mm,
and he foretold it all. And the idea of once a population of animals or plants, and certainly humans, the density gets to a certain level, there's an inevitable decay of
yeah.
the society.
Is that where Malthusian comes from? Is that the
Correct.
okay?
So it's hardly a happy read, but it equips you with, how do we avoid this?
Yes, yeah,
And this
yeah.
is going back 200, no, more, maybe 400 years ago.
You took it
Um,
for the team. Thank you for
yeah.
for sharing that with us. Yeah.
Anyway, so the question I think is, first of all, how do you survive in tumultuous times
Yeah.
physically?
Yes.
And also, what can you do to survive your own internal tumultuous response to those external changes?
Yeah.
It's like a kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Our own, yours and my version of it. Um, what is it we need to be a functioning human inside that allows us to be a functional human outside?
Yes, absolutely.
And I've said this many times. Um, People who feel content about themselves feel they have some level of influence over their future.
Hmm.
And once you have no sense that you can influence your future, that's when you become depressed. That's when you get the mental health, bad mental health behaviors.
Right.
So it's that, what can I influence? And then this isn't mine, but it's the idea of the two circles in our lives, the circle of concern and the circle of influence. And we're in this situation where I think there's a high proportion of people, possibly the majority, in these tumultuous times where their circle of concern is much bigger than their circle of influence to
Yeah.
change their concerns.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of it is we just deluge with concern.
Yes. Yes.
And we can't influence everything, but we are encouraged to be concerned about everything.
Yeah, and some might say that certain actors in our culture rely on the mechanisms you've outlined from our earlier sort of brain development to be constantly looking out for threats, which are
Yes.
now which are now social media or news, and we can be attracted, can't we, by
Mm.
shiny devastation, if you like. That this
Yeah. Uh,
what's gone wrong now? That kind
yeah.
of response,
It's
and
like,
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, isn't there?
oh, maybe to ridicule it slightly. I don't mean to. It's like lion.
Yeah,
Oh, I see. That famous person has had a really bad butt lift.
that's right.
Same
Some,
response.
something you didn't know you needed to be interested in, but
But
wired to
now
the
I'm
same
concerned about
survival.
it. Oh, poor
Yeah,
woman.
yes, a survival instinct is still kind of wired to it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sadly.
we can't. And it's like it's a drug. It's
Yeah.
that dopamine hit. Then there's nothing I can do about it.
Yes, yes. Well,
Oh,
built-in addiction. I think I'm talking to Eric Bourgon on my morning show tomorrow. He's
yeah,
a pioneer in the digital detox world, and he says it's really important for people not to blame themselves because it's built
absolutely.
in. The addictive process of social media
Yes.
was designed. It's by design, and if you've fallen foul of it, it's because you've fallen foul of a very ingenious design, and part of
Oh,
seeing that is really helpful. But you mustn't blame yourself.
a certain very famous platform, social media platform, and I'm very careful never to name names. If you watch the movie of how it was found,
Yeah.
how it was generated, was simply about giving attractive women scores at college.
Yes, we all know which one that is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So that was playing on the most fundamental male drive,
yeah.
attraction to the opposite sex. And the clever people at that company have used the same kind of drives, not just with men, but women and children increasingly, for one purpose, and that's to sell advertising
Mm,
and to get your data.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's that. The whole of that, the social media thing is predicated on putting their hand in our pockets.
And they found the most ingenious ways of doing it, and that, of course, again, is part of our tumultuous
Yeah.
times, isn't it? The landscape we live in, the
Yeah.
threat, the susceptibility, all of that sort of stuff is there. And so I think we've created quite a picture then of the scenario,
Mm.
and maybe in this second half we'll kind of flip it a little bit to look at what we can do to survive and
Yeah.
thrive. And
Yeah.
it's a given then, I think, isn't it, for the purposes of this conversation, that we live in tumultuous times. It's also perhaps the case that we are living in unprecedented levels of influence and transformation and change, and
Mm.
the deluge of information and forces coming our way that we've never seen the likes of before, which it
I
has
think
already created a difficult situation.
what we're seeing again, without taking any sides at all,
Yeah.
we're seeing huge movements based on social or um, huge movements are using social media
Yeah.
to drive opposing points of view at a global scale that are
Yeah.
independent of nations.
And let's call it what it is, because it really annoys me when people say America, the White House, Downing Street, or China, because actually what you're talking about is a few individuals in those
Yeah,
places, and that
driving
kind
their agendas.
Yeah, that excuses or obfuscates who is really driving things. So, and you could do the same with social media, couldn't you? Because
Yeah,
there are some great things about social media as far as I'm concerned, and
wonderful.
I use it. However, there are forces in it. There are dark forces in it, and manipulative ones that you've described the origins of, and
Yeah.
how they work and what their motive is, and that's a huge volume and level, isn't it? And we do gladly kind of put ourselves in front
Mm.
of it because of the way it's been designed and because of the way the world seems to work and how we might engage with it. So we've got that picture. That's like our sort of preface
Yeah.
intro. We've teed it up. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I did. We've done surviving a little bit, but
Yeah,
the thriving aspect of tumultuous. The happiest people I've come across recently
yeah.
are people who have worked in corporates, been getting £1 million bonuses, buying stuff, and then given most of it away and gone completely off grid.
Yes. Yes.
They
Yeah.
they they're on the grid, but second hand. What they do is they send physical photographs and physical or printed digital images and handwritten letters using an envelope and a stamp to friends of theirs who then upload it.
Really?
And what they're trying to say is, like, I don't actually have to send these letters, but I think you should know this is a new way of living.
My goodness. Well, okay.
How that's the extreme. That's a privileged few,
Yeah.
but it does show us that stepping off the treadmill lowers our stress levels.
And we all know that to some extent, don't we? Whether it's a weekend break, a retreat, 2 weeks
Yeah,
off work a year, we have a sense, don't we, of how we might. It's a very sane approach. I think
yeah.
Alim is
But
pointing
the
to that.
thriving might be a dynamic thing. You know, the surviving, thriving. You can be doing both things at the same time in different parts of your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Using my own, I thrived during my academic career.
Yeah.
As far as everyone else saw, I achieved lots and lots of visible things.
Hmm.
Inside, it was a survival battle almost every minute of every day.
Yes.
But that would change in a heartbeat because of something that went positive. And if I paid attention to the positive, I felt better about myself. So I thrived a bit. So it's not an either or situation. It's not a nirvana to head for. And once you've reached it, you will always thrive.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
a process that you
It
have to
is.
pay attention to.
It is a process. It's training. It's realization.
Mm.
It's epiphanies. It's depression. It's a very complex process. But
It
I'm glad
is.
we're talking about it because if you know if just some people sympathize or empathize or recognize that this is even a conversation to be had and there is some light
Oh,
or
absolutely.
relief available, that's
Mm.
really helpful, I think. And these are
Mm.
the sort of conversations I would have liked to have had access to, and probably did in different forms as a younger man, looking
Yeah.
for looking for something a little bit more positive and inspiring and uplifting from what was generally on offer from the collective.
Yeah.
Before we kind of really go into what the techniques and the approach and attitude might be for thriving after surviving, and I'm sure we'll sort of go,
Mm.
a few steps forward and one back possibly. This motif came up, didn't it?
Yeah.
What's going on? Because it's interesting to me that this album, and sorry if this seems a bit of a tangent or a little bit, disconnected and random, but Marvin Gaye in 1971 released this album. It was his 11th solo album, and it was, I think, disliked by Berry Gordy, who ran the record label, and was like, "Oh, Marvin's having one of his funny do's again," and he's recorded his gloom and doom album talking about fishful of mercury and what's going on in the world. And today years old yesterday when I took a second look at this album, which has meant a lot to me. And it was,
Mm.
on the one hand, we're still facing exactly the same problems. And we could argue 50 years later, they've been sort of exacerbated and amplified. And poor bloke, he was pointing it out to us then, and we haven't really done a great deal about it, and things have got worse. But what really struck me yesterday, and I hadn't noticed this for the last 50 years nearly, is it's not a question as it's entitled on the album there. There's no question mark. He was saying this is what's going on, not what's going on, right, as a
Yeah.
question.
Not,
And
not
that's
I'm ignorant, will you educate me?
yeah,
It's
I think yes, I
pay
think this
bloody attention.
yes, and I don't know if this was a grammatical error in the design department or that's what he meant to say when someone said, "Look, there should be a question mark on there," and Marvin Gaye said, "No, actually, this is what's going on." Suffice to say, it's still going on. It's got worse. Some might say a lot worse. For some people, it's got much, much worse. For some people, it might have improved a little bit. But the general trend, the direction of travel for humanity, using Marvin Gaye's moment there, when we were in just after the age of Aquarius, when we thought other tumultuous times might
Mm.
give way to a new age and a new ways of being. Not a great deal has happened that's been incredibly positive within that kind of paradigm and way of thinking. So we're still looking at what's going on. We've outlined what's going on, which is this absolutely overwhelming scenario of things we can't possibly cope with, and some of our brothers and sisters are experiencing and showing that. What is it then, Gary, as somebody who has learned to survive and thrive, although not necessarily at the same time as you pointed out? What are
Yeah.
your suggestions as a more mature fella who, to the youngers who might be thinking, well, yeah, okay, well, tell me how to survive, and what do we have to do to thrive in this culture?
Okay, so big subject, and I'll do my best. What I've realized is to first survive, internally or externally, it's about really sweating the small stuff. It's about acting locally in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And your neighborhood can be global, but it's within a niche that you have some influence on. In fact, Vikas, who we interviewed last
Oh yeah.
time,
Yes. Yes.
he told me when I first met him, well, I asked him, how is it you've grown this big business, global business? And he went, because I started and focused locally longer than I needed to.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, acting and thinking locally. And from that comes this idea of I'm at my best when I can influence things.
Hmm.
I'm at my best when I have influence over myself. How do I do that? I pay close attention to the seminar of my life. And that goes from one thought to the situation in Palestine. So I take in the whole seminar, and then I go, in reality, which of these things do I have any influence over?
Hmm.
What could that influence be? And then I run an experiment, a well-meaning life experiment to see, A, do I have any influence? And B, do I get the result that I was hoping for?
Yeah.
If I have no influence, well, maybe stop beating my head on that. Be aware of it. I'm aware of the situation in Palestine. The amount that I can physically do, given my age, my influence, the amount I can do is actually quite limited. I can lobby my MP, I can do all sorts of things, and I have done so. But to alter global shifts it takes many people together doing things to influence big shifts. So let's look at small things. I don't know whether you've got access to that little
Yeah,
diagram
yeah,
thing I
definitely.
sent you.
Oh yeah, no, I will. I will. In it, give me a moment.
Yeah.
To
Okay. So
yeah.
I'll extemporize. Let's say you want to achieve something, okay, but you're having a hard time trying to achieve it. So this is what I call the achievement equation. I'm a scientist. I have to have something. So on the left is achievement, and you want that to happen. It could be maintaining a relationship. It could be getting promoted. It could be political influence. I need to influence and achieve something. That is equal to our innate potential to achieve that thing. All our skills, all our attitudes, our health, mental and physical, everything that we are, that we can bring to bear to achieve that thing.
Hmm.
But it's minus the interferences, the things that get in the way from accessing all your potential. And some of those are internal, our state of mind, our mood, our mindset, physical. I'll call that internal. They're our personal characteristics, let's say. But then there are external things. If it's going for a job, well, there's the company it's advertising. If I'm running a business, it might be the tax situation or advertising. It could be anything. So I sit down with the specific thing I want to achieve, and I go, can I influence this? Yes, no. And I don't worry about half measures. Can I influence it? No. If it's no, stop. And there are
Yes.
things I can influence internally and externally. Internally, I can meditate. I can take exercise. I can
Mm.
talk to people. I can take their advice. It all changes my internal capacity. And then I go, okay, I've identified something I can influence that's get this block that's in the way. I may be able to reduce it a bit. How do I do that? Well, I go and find a way to do it. I read, talk to people, I run an experiment. And then I observe the results. Are they convenient or inconvenient? If they're convenient, in other words, more positive, I do that thing all the time. I embed it in my actions.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing this, all sorts of different things. I can't change the tax situation. Just pay my taxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I might be able to influence a local political situation. So I can talk to my local councillors, maybe over how they reducing the number of bin collections, garbage collections. So when these all add up, you begin to feel, actually, I'm controlling my life a bit more. The interferences reduce and your innate potential is released.
Yes.
And you achieve the thing. And I know it works because I've done it on me. And as you know, I was an executive coach for 10 years. I used exactly this approach for people's personal lives as well as their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They did all the hard work of identifying what they could and couldn't influence. They did all the hard work of running the experiments. I just acted as their champion. So you act as your own champion to start with if it's all about very personal things.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's how to identify the crap that gets in the way and how to shove it to one side.
Very good. Thank you for that. And it is a scientific. This works for a particular mindset or mind type, doesn't it? It's a kind
You
of
can either go whole hog into it
yeah.
and be very, very strategic and organized, or you can use it in a more haphazard way and go, I've noticed I've been a bit more distant from my loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
And you find one thing that you can change it. Okay, I'll pay more bloody attention to the missus, So it doesn't have to be scientific. It
That's
just that.
always good advice. Yeah, and well, the reason I said that is because to me this whole sort of discussion about what is the truth and whether something's true or not is I think how much you can generalize something, and I see the lower half of your diagram as being quite tactical, and in terms of the concept and or the truth of this is what's scalable and what's transferable here is achievement, however you might see that, is potential with interference taken out, isn't it? The highest levels of
Yeah,
achievement and
yes,
on a spiritual level, let's say, one's human potential on a spiritual level, all that humans can be, are born, I think, when you reduce the amount of friction and interference that gets in the way of that. So there's
yeah.
a lovely sort of principle of truth that
Well,
I
it brings us back to what you were raising about the everyday stresses
yeah.
adversely affecting our mental health.
Yes. Yes.
So what we're finding is the adverse effects on our mental health are preventing us achieving the things that we desire,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely. Yeah, and they are distractions,
contentment,
aren't they?
etc. So
Yes,
the question I have is, what is in our lives that is causing the stress, and how can we play with experiments? In other words, maybe don't look at the phone first thing in the morning.
yeah, well, I
Whatever's on
started
there
doing
will be there
absolutely.
3 hours later.
Well
So that's
said.
a little experiment you can
Yeah.
run to remove some of the interference. And after a
Or
while, you
look
go,
at it, or look at it and be mindful of what effect it has, because that's
yeah,
another approach, isn't it? If you
it
feel
is.
like
Yeah.
if you're taking the diet approach, which is like, oh, it's just so painful not looking at my phone.
Mm,
Pick it up and look at it, but be aware of what it does to you.
Yeah. What's
That would be another.
triggering you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
So
know,
that and it comes again. I guess it's coming back to
mm,
mindfulness and the application of mindfulness. Now, I'm aware we've got about
close.
10 minutes left, and we've raised a lot of questions, and you've given us some very good input there, Gary, from your own experience and
Thank you.
from your work as an executive coach, which is working with well, that's the question from Mr. S. How would you quickly describe what an executive coach is?
An executive coach is somebody that works with business leaders.
Yep,
So managing directors, CEOs, they're the
yep.
people that control the direction of flow of a business, where it's going, and the overall tone of what it's like to work inside that business.
And there you were pitched at that level
Yeah.
of work and society. I wanted to come back to Alim's comments here. I think it's not just technological change, but also social and economic structural violence. I would completely agree with that. And
Yeah.
we've not really realized the level and impact of that, have we? We've just kind of inherited systems that we've gladly gone to work in and suffered individually whilst the whole collective endeavor has trundled
Yeah.
on. And also an epidemic of social trauma largely unnoticed, and that's the nature, isn't it? I think of how we gaslight and Stockholm syndrome ourselves. It's like, well, this is what everybody does, and that the suffering around that is felt individually.
You know what my mind is like. I've just had this thing pop in, which is if we were an alien nation or world and we wanted to destroy humanity, we would pretty much drop a germ in which creates the kind of turmoil that we are experiencing. Let them destroy themselves. We don't have to take any risks.
Yeah,
We're inside it. We can't see it doing
yeah,
it.
yes,
And, we're a positive echo podcast and we're supposed to leave a positive echo. The
absolutely.
thing is, we do have the capacity, the self regulation to not let this stuff happen.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what are people doing to work in the opposite direction? And it has to come from the spiritual, religious, if that's your thing, but also the very practical, everyday passing it forwards,
yeah,
as if we're
absolutely.
ignoring all this other stuff.
Yeah. Well, whatever state we're in that we've talked about and are describing tonight, there's something being aware of that, isn't there? That
Yes.
there is a viewer of it all in us, and I think that's the place to start. And that viewer can be variously empowered or supported or obscured, or
Hmm.
all sorts of things can happen to our awareness, and I think our awareness is really precious, and it
Our
ultimately
decision
all we
to
have.
our decision to thrive is a form of rebellion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
rebel by thriving,
Yes, yeah,
not by
yeah.
surviving.
And it as a self-fulfilling, nourishing way of being. You get more the more you thrive in a wholesome, fulfilling, and nourishing way. I think the greater capacity you create to do that, and the greater an example and beacon of that sort of behavior you might be as well. And that's why we like the great
Yeah, yeah.
inspirational people, isn't it? It's because I think that's exactly what they've done as well.
Yes.
That's
They
and
don't give in.
No, and their lives are very interesting as a result, depending on whichever one you look at. But certainly the canon or the bulk of their work, the reason we're so inspired, I think, does come from their self-reflective capacity and what they share as a result of those sometimes horrific and massive struggles that do include a great amount of self-reflection and
Yeah.
integrity and the great qualities we love in humans. Right, the palate cleanse, Gary. A great conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here and having it. You supply as well, by way of a bit of a palate cleanser, a spiritual not, is it a sorbet? I suppose it is, isn't it? A
Yeah,
sorbet
could be. Could
to
be.
finish the smorgasbord of thoughts that we've presented to people. What you got? Who are these people here?
Well, it's the guy in the middle, Nicky Crawford. He's from Georgia, and I happened to post about when was the last time you had a proper conversation with a homeless person, and
Oh, yeah.
the response was enormous. Because I have a guy, Tony, I haven't seen him for a while, locally, that I used to meet, have a chat with by the river. For most of the year, he lived on a bench. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, if you'd seen him, you'd think, ooh, dirty, not nice. But this guy was ex-military. He had fought for his country all over the place. He then came back, and as he said, there's not much call for a sniper in modern society outside the army. So he became a trawlerman, not a high-risk thing. Anyway, he and I chatted again and again and again. He told me some great things. And I realized, and I told him this, and he couldn't quite work it out. I said, "You've given me the greatest gift I can think of." And he went, "What's that?" Conversation, education. Anyway, so I pay attention to things to do with the homeless. So here's this guy, and he started off by producing, I think it was out of an old Airstream, or some other kind of big vehicle. And on one side of the vehicle are showers, and on the other side of the vehicle are washing machines. So, and now you can see he's got to haircuts and shaves. And what he realized was that if you're homeless, you can't do those things. So he just goes out and helps people get clean. So now they can go and get interviews, get jobs, get accommodation. So they're off the street. Once you've got accommodation, you can get a bank account.
Yeah, right.
And their lives thrived. And this has now grown and grown and grown. I mean, I've only skimmed the surface of what this guy has started. It is amazing, but it started small and he started local. And that for me is the epitome. Like Vikas started small, started local in Minneapolis, and it's now global.
Yep.
This is a form of rebellion.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said. You may have a concern, a circle of concern about homelessness, and you most definitely have a circle of influence where you could help people in your local vicinity or somewhere, a vicinity.
Yes.
And it's best to start in that way, isn't it? Go help out a soup kitchen, or find a project where you can apply yourself rather than just drive yourself mad thinking about how terrible the problem is. Perhaps.
And it's not just about doing good, and it's not just about being nice. You will feel so much better for doing it.
Yeah, it's a win-win, isn't it? Let's there is a selfishness in wanting to help as well, and that's no bad thing.
And you get hooked on the dopamine rush.
That's right.
You do.
Absolutely.
It feeds a different form of addiction.
And it might be a bit more sustainable and helpful in society than using social media for that purpose.
So,
fantastic, Gary. Right, excellent stuff. That's flowingwithblessings.org if you want to find out more about that. Gary, thank you very much. Our conversation about, I think we can assume we are living in these chaotic, tumultuous times, and we can have conversations, support each other, hear each other. Like you say, the power of conversation is very important, isn't it? Like blathering on for no particular purpose, I guess, can happen sometimes, but hopefully there is a positive echo from one of our 10 podcasts so far, and we'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time, probably with a guest, but we'll see. Keep an eye on Gary's Substack for that. Can we have the name of your Substack again, please, Gary?
It is garycolton.substack.com. And it's called
The Positive Echo on Substack. You should be able to find that. Okay, mate. Love to Surrey, the county of my birth in the UK, which I imagine is still nice and hot. You've had some incredible weather over there, haven't you?
It's pretty dull today, actually, but very humid. Really humid. Anyway.
All right, mate. All the best. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening as well. Mel, Aleem, Mr. S, and Hugh, who popped in as well. So thank you very much for being here. We'll see you again soon, I hope. Take care and bye.